good morning. Wow, one person responded. It's like it's a dead room. So let's try it one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Three people were making progress. One final time. Ladies and gentlemen, Kigali, good morning. Thank you, you're fantastic. I'm excited to lead this panel about manufacturing in East Africa. Can we turn the region into a manufacturing hub? You've seen about it. We're seeing some bright spots in industries such as textiles, automotive, construction, and agriculture. And the people on the panel represent different industries who are doing interesting things across the region. And we're taking a very, how shall I say, generous definition of East Africa. It goes as far as Ethiopia. And so it's more like Eastern Africa. We're all one people. Even the ESC is expanding, the East African community is expanding, we're accepting everyone. So same energy, that's the same energy in this panel. Cool? We agree on that? Great, let's get started. Let me introduce my panelists. Sitting right next to me is Dr. Jean-Chrysostome Ngabitsinze. He's the Minister for Trade and Industry here in Rwanda. Welcome to the panel. Thank you. Next, you can applaud. Thank you. So spontaneous. Sitting next to him is Henok Tefera Shaw, Managing Director of Africa at the Boeing Company. Next to him is Mary Porter Peshka, Regional Director for Eastern Africa Hub at the IFC. Includes Ethiopia. See, that's the right energy. And next to her is Igor van den Essen, Regional Managing Director for Africa and Europe at APM Terminals. And last but not least, my neighbor, Sadbeir Hanspol, CEO of the Hanspol Group from Tanzania. So let's get started straight into it. Sadbeir, you do a lot of manufacturing from a wide range of industries, from pre-engineered buildings into safari companies and all sorts of other things in between. Talk a little about your portfolio.
So at Hanspol, we specialize in the safari vehicles, the famous vehicles that really is the product that brings in the tourists into the parks, takes them to the parks. So we try to make those vehicles safe and comfortable, and we export to 14 countries. And as Africa CEO Forum, the way I must quote yesterday, I was in one of the halls. They said, it's time for Africa now. So as an African product, we have to go beyond borders. And so we as Hanspol, we don't consider as Tanzania or East Africa. We should look as Africa as a market for everyone, so that we can economize on economies of scale and have it scalable throughout Africa.
But it's not just the safari trucks. You have garbage trucks, you have pre-engineered buildings, steel structures.
Yes, so the other division, we do steel structures, we manufacture garbage trucks. Most of our products, if not all, are all environmental impact products. Our other division, we do recycled paper, make paper bags, carton boxes. And then we've ventured into electric vehicles. We retrofit diesel to electric. So we give the vehicle the second life. So once the vehicle has been used for 10 to 15 or 20 years, the clients bring us back and we retrofit them from diesel to fully electric vehicles. And most of the parks, we have solar panels, we have solar charging stations there. And those vehicles are charged through that. And by doing so, we do not have old vehicles in the market. We just give them a second life. And then we also ventured into providing solutions, because a lot of investors who come into Africa, they may not want to purchase land. So we purchase the land, we build the warehouses, and then we rent them. So we're trying to give a solution within our boundaries so that we get foreign investment into the country. And there's a huge ripple effect on job creation and value addition. So by doing so, we do not want any hindrance between an investor and the end user. So as a private sector, we look into opportunities every day, but we must take into consideration the sustainability of the project, the environmental impact, and the local community positive impact.
Thank you. So, Minister Ngabitsinze, people might not know this. You're Rwanda's Trade and Industry Minister, but you're also an associate professor of agricultural economics. And he was telling me he still has students. You still teach?
Yes, I still teach.
You're currently supervising PhD students.
Yes, I do.
How do you have time to do that and also be minister?
You see, it's on?
There you are.
Yes, now I think it's okay. The correlation between being a professor and a minister is positive. Because at the end you become professor or lecturer or teacher because you want to share what you know with people, not only young people, students, but with the community. So being a professor is a way to live, is a way of life. Being a minister is a way of serve. You serve more people using what you know or what you think to know. You see, I'm someone convinced that the theory is very important to become practical. You will see in what we are discussing here, people here are in the practices. But believe me, the big percentage of their labor, they have a good theory regarding manufacturing.
Right.
So those two variables are correlated positively. If you miss one, being efficient in another one is not easy.
So the theory and the practice are equally important. The reason why I bring that up is because you're a professor of agricultural economics, and as Africa, we depend so much on agriculture. So what is your strategy to spur manufacturing here in Rwanda?
You see, when you are a minister, you don't have a strategy. You have a government vision. I will talk on behalf of the government of Rwanda, what we see in terms of strategy in agro-processing, in agro-industry. As you have said, not only in Rwanda, in Africa you have enough land in terms of physical content, but idle land, meaning that that land is not well used. So the strategy around from our government to African Community of Free Trade and the African Union, how can we be able efficiently produce enough, first for our people, that is food security, second for business, that is agri-business. So the strategy around is to use all available factors of production efficiently. So the strategy in Rwanda, because we have a particularity, we are small, and we are landlocked. So first of all, you have to make sure that what we produce is at optimal level, not at maximum. The second, what we produce is well used. There is no post-harvest losses. Because the issue now we have in Africa, we have a lot of losses around our value chains. So we are trying to minimize on that to make sure that we have technology. I want to add technology in our factors of production. And of course, innovations around to make sure that our product in the quantity and the quality are good, as I have said, for the people and for the business. So we have what we call here in Rwanda PSTR. PSTR is a program of transformation in agriculture. Now we are on PSTR 5. So meaning that around 25 years putting together ideas, strategies, policies to grow in agriculture. We still have challenges, but at least today agriculture is contributing very well in our GDP because we have export. Of course, we're still importing because the business is like that. But if you see the trend in terms of contribute to GDP, agriculture is doing well because we are investing mainly in agro-processing and agro-industry. Of course, as I have said, using equipment from manufacturing. Yeah, that is the strategy we have as a country. And in terms of working with others, because we're talking about East Africa, Rwanda belongs to East African community, but we even believe on AFCFTA, African Continental Free Trade. The challenges we have around our working together is putting the pieces we have around the countries to have one unity in terms of implementation. If you see today AFCFTA, the big challenge we have as the Minister of Trade, because we have a ministerial council, the one in charge, is logistics. Even if you have a very good ideas around how to proceed, how to have a good product, but the transportation is a very, very big negative factor we have in what we do. So meaning that we need to invest in infrastructures to make sure that agriculture can be very easy to smallholder farmers we have, and a product can reach from Rwanda to Ghana, Ghana to Guinea, and everywhere. So investment, first of all. So we need to put money. No one will give us money if, as Africans, we can't have enough money, first of all, to put in our project. Of course, we have partners, you have IFC here, you have others, but first of all, the African continental free trade has to have in mind, we Africans first, others come to support what we think. Thank you.
I saw Igor nodding aggressively when he talked about logistics and the importance of that. Even if we became a massive manufacturing hub and you cannot transport what you manufacture from one place to the other, there are no efficiencies there, it's all going to waste, right?
Yeah, thank you, Larry. And before I give an answer, I would like to congratulate Minister Rwanda with hosting this event. After one day, I'm convinced that Africa is at the table and not on the menu. So super inspired by that. Thank you. Yes, transportation and an ecosystem of transportation. That is absolutely crucial. Logistics is very integrated. If one part doesn't work, then the whole system doesn't work. And if you want to grow your economy, means that you need to invest. You need to invest there. As APM Terminals, we are a port operator. We are part of the Maersk Group, and where we believe in as APM Moller Maersk is improve life for all by integrating the world. And integration, that's exactly where it is about. It is proven if you invest in a seaport and the ecosystem around it, that will create economic growth. And if you create economic growth and you have a well-functioning seaport that is efficient, and that efficiency means that all the blocks need to work, so your port, your zone around it, your inland connections, then you will attract more trade. That means that shipping lines that call you, they will start to change their service lines, and that will boost your trade further. To give an example, close to home, now today in Rwanda, Maersk is the largest inland container provider from the sea to Rwanda.
Right.
With routes from Dar es Salaam and Mombasa. So it's important that we invest and that we invest together. This is not a challenge that we can lift alone as private companies, but this comes in partnership. So where we look for, and we are present in North Africa and West Africa by our ports, we are very keen and eager to expand in East Africa as port operating company. That is through partnerships with governments and port authorities, because this is a long-term investment.
All right, and talking about those partnerships, Mary, I think this is where you jump in from the Eastern Africa hub of the IFC and what you're telling governments about promoting investment here and making sure that there's more manufacturing happening across the region.
Sorry, I'm not the most technologically inclined.
It's all right. We got there in the end.
So would you just give me the
Sure. What's the IFC's thinking around spurring manufacturing growth in the region?
Sure. So for IFC, I mean, many of you know us as an investment house, but we also provide advisory services and leverage our membership in the broader bank group to work on policy and bigger strategic thinking. And manufacturing is actually one of our key priorities for this region. And Igor said the word ecosystem, and I think that's central to today's conversation, because you need a lot of different dimensions to come into play, whether it's electricity, roads, ports, transports, logistics. You need capacity. We need to talk about human capital, the right skills to support the manufacturing growth. You need the right policies, tariff regimes, et cetera. Red tape in general needs to be gone, or at the very least minimized significantly. And IFC is working on all of those fronts. And again, I made the point on purpose. It's not just with our investment. Of course, we're investing in electricity. Powering up Africa is a big theme this year for IFC and the broader bank group. But we're investing in a variety of different sectors. Manufacturing, green manufacturing, very important to us. Cement used to be a dirty word. I used to be the global E&S director, but now we've had a number of successful investment and advisory projects including on this continent, where we've helped companies green their cement operations, achieve the efficiency Igor referred to. Some are lower cost than cement plants in Europe and elsewhere. So we're bringing the whole toolkit to grow the manufacturing base.
Are there specific policies that hold the region back, like stuff that just own goals that need to go? I know you can't, come on, we're among friends here. You can just say, like, this should not be happening.
Let's just say there's room for improvement across the continent when it comes to creating an enabling environment for the growth of manufacturing.
I tried.
I think the audience can tell us better which policies, and you should tell us.
We will go to the audience a little later so they can ask some of those questions and maybe say what they're thinking. Henok, I noticed you just joined Boeing in December, and I noticed in your announcement it said that Boeing plans to open an office in Addis Ababa, where you're based. So does that mean we are going to be manufacturing plane parts for Boeing soon?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you also, first of all, to Rwanda for this magnificent CEO forum. I think you guys are amazing in terms of hosting and the warm hospitality you give, and you make us feel truly at home. You know, Boeing has been manufacturing in Africa for quite a while. It's a little known fact. But in my previous capacity, for example, I was an executive at Ethiopian Airlines. Ethiopian Airlines, besides providing air transport services, also manufactures parts for Boeing, particular wire harness bundles that goes into the aircraft. Now, Boeing also has a JV in place with Morocco, which manufactures these same bundles. And actually, Morocco has built a very efficient ecosystem, aerospace manufacturing ecosystem, and gets $2 billion in export revenue from this.
Wow.
So kudos to Morocco, who's doing a fantastic job. And I think that's also an example that needs to be emulated.
What parts is Ethiopian Airlines manufacturing for Boeing?
So it's wire harness bundles, these wires that go into the aircraft. And then secondly, now they're also manufacturing what's called insulation blankets that basically go on in the airframe of the aircraft. And that was started with a JV with an Italian company through our initiative at Boeing. And now Ethiopian Airlines is actually going to scale up the production and go into one of the industrial parks built around Addis in a place called Kilinto, and they're going to do it on a massive scale. So that's the way forward. Many people know the potential of Africa, but in aviation, the potential is more than a potential. We're seeing a lot of aircraft orders from Africa. And in the next 20 years, we expect 1,000+ new aircraft to be ordered from this continent. Of course, all of them are not going to be Boeing.
Right.
I hope they will be, but nonetheless, this is a lot of leverage that Africa can use to basically, go into the, first of all, the maintenance business, develop it in the continent, which is still underdeveloped, unfortunately, and into the other phase, which is the aerospace manufacturing business. So there's a lot of opportunity for governments working with airlines, with the right set of policies and with the manufacturers to bring in some of the global manufacturing capacity here, because the business is going to be in Africa going forward.
Out of curiosity, your immediate former job was at Safaricom Ethiopia, Safaricom Telecommunications, and before that, a long time at Ethiopian Airlines. I wonder if in the day-to-day business there are parts or equipment that could have easily been manufactured in country or in the region, but just don't happen.
I mean, aviation is a very heavily regulated business, both globally, regionally, and nationally. So it takes a lot of know-how to be developed. So the right set of policies, the right set of training, and the right vision is required by the country in question, working with private sector stakeholders to develop this capacity locally. It's not simple. It requires investment, time, and talent. And it's actually a two-way street. It cannot come by itself. But the conditions are there for it to grow because the business is on this continent.
All right. We want to talk about special economic zones, Minister Ngabitsinze. And I saw a story here in the paper, the New Times of Rwanda, that the government would repossess undeveloped land in industrial parks across the country. What does that mean? Are you having issues having manufacturers set up and on time and deliver on what they said, or what is the difficulty in uptake there?
Thank you so much for the question, because today we have, of course, two types, as you have said, special economic zones and industrial parks, and in Rwanda you have both. We have two special economic zones. One is fully operational in Kigali, with more than 200 small, medium enterprises and industries. Another one is in the eastern province near the new airport, under ERISA, operating it. And then we have 6 industrial parks across the country. The policy around industrial parks is to make sure that you can put together resources in terms of the capital, in terms of infrastructure, and of course, creating environment to minimize the cost of doing business there. So energy,
I think that
water.
microphone is acting a bit weird. Try and use the other one.
Putting their energy, water, and everything to support business people over there. So in Rwanda, we began this in 2010 with the special economic zone in Kigali. Before it was industrial park. Then we upgraded to special economic zones. And as you have seen the New Times, as you read it, it's giving us a good return because from our targets in NST1, national strategy for the last 7 years, government 7 years, industrial contribution to GDP now is around 22%. The target was 19, so meaning that we are doing well in terms of industrializations. The industrial parks, we have 2 and 1 in each provinces. Some provinces have 2 because of the size. In the south, we have 2. In the west, we have 2. In northern, we have 1. Then in the east, we have 2. So meaning that we want to make sure that the inputs we have from our communities, they can reach easily the industrial park. Then the borders we have can be served in terms of export. So for some of them, we still have investment to put, mainly on the government side is putting infrastructures, as I have said. Then we attract investors. We have a special one I want to talk about in agriculture sector is Gabiro Agribusiness Hub, where now we have 5,000 hectares fully completed with irrigations, roads, and other facilities. Now we are receiving offers from investors. The minimum size of land you can take is 200 hectares to make sure that we are producing at large scale. And this will be mainly for export. So for the next 5 years, we want to complete the remaining 6 industrial parks to be fully operational. In addition to that, we want to create special industrial parks, mainly for textiles, meaning that tannery and garment. Another is pharmaceutical, where we are doing well now with the vaccines. We want even to add production of medicines and the other related equipment for medicine. So that is what we have today as a country.
What is your pitch to investors when you talk to them to set up here? As you mentioned, you're a small landlocked country. Why would they come here and not, say, Tanzania or Ethiopia, which are larger, or next to in DRC?
Yeah, you see, a size is not a problem when we want to take rational decisions. In addition to what you offer in terms of doing business in our investment code, we make sure that our investors are safe in terms of security. So people here are secured, not only them in terms of being people, but even their investment, they are secured. Thank you.
All right, Sadbir, you took over the Handspole Group from your dad, who took it over from his dad. I think it began in 1965?
Yes.
So it's been in the family a long time. But it's a very capital-intensive operation. So as an entrepreneur, how do you square that? How do you think about it if you're going to be investing some more? How do you approach it?
Thank you for this question. In fact, I was just thinking about making a comment on this one. So we in Africa, we are always struggling in the chicken comes first or the egg. We talk about building capacity. We talk about costing. Unfortunately, when it comes to tenders, when it comes to big spenders as our governments for Africa, the policies in place are not, let's say, promoting the locals to come up, for example, if I may be a little bit blunt here. So for us to build that capacity, for an investor today to go and ask for $100 million or $200 million investment, from an institution, the first thing they'll say is, that's good, give us your business plan, but how do you plan to be getting the return of investment? So if we have some policies in place for our African countries so that build local, buy local, then we will eventually build that capacity. And of course, we have to lock the parameters of quality. We must lock in the parameters of integrity. We must lock in those policies for human capital to be at least used locally, but then our local human resources also must be getting that opportunity to be trained abroad so that we can import technology, we can import different artificial intelligence and the new technologies, but we need to build that capacity within our Africa. And if we have a short-term, medium term and long-term plan, some of the raw materials that we either mine or we grow, some of them may not be able to be utilized immediately. But we must have some policies in place that, okay, within 5 years or within 3 years, these raw material that is mined in Africa, it must produce a product so that those materials can at least evolve within Africa, if not exported out of Africa. That's our blueprint for the next 30 years, for example, or next 20 years. So these are the points that we must somehow come to some agreement that we should not repeat the same things every year, every 5 years. We need to put those policies in place so that the local African products are capitalized from raw material to product, because the value addition is more than 10x. I mean, example, if you grow an orange and export the orange, in return to having that orange converted to orange juice. So these are the policies that I feel we should be discussing at country level, at regional level.
But in most cases, we're just still exporting the orange. It gets value added elsewhere.
So that's one. And then the cost of capital, for example. Yeah, for entrepreneurs, small, medium, it's very difficult to borrow money. And if you can, it's like, I mean, it's a bit, I'm trying to be politically
Don't be diplomatic,
correct.
just say it.
Yeah.
Just
So,
say it. Say it to the full chest.
You know, I mean, if you see a history of a company that had maybe a turnover of $1 and then within a few years it's gone to, let's say, $100, I mean, that family business has some vision. But now they'll be stuck at the $100 because if they want to go to $10,000, the push they do require a more thorough and a more in-depth research about that family business or the entrepreneur, if they can be supported. But you land a company for 5 years, but then in 5 years it's difficult to have that money back, and even the cost of capital is quite heavy, and so people a little bit are worried on should they do it or not, because these businessmen want to return the money back. Remember, these businessmen have integrity. They have a family, perhaps a reputation over 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades. They don't want that to be tarnished. So it's a point which, as Africa, we should have some type of policy where these type of business houses or startups should get that push from within the revenue streams within Africa, so we can rotate the money within Africa or within the region.
I feel like you're speaking Mary's language about the cost of capital and value addition. You're taking lots of notes. Give us the summary.
This is one, okay. So look, back to the SEZs, and then I'll touch on the
Go for it.
cost of capital. I mean, SEZs, I think it's important to remember, are not a silver bullet. We've seen some great successes. We've seen some
Great failures.
great failures. Yep, being quite direct about it. I was going to say not so much, but not so great. And where we've seen SEZs succeed, they've spurred trade, they've spurred industrialization, and we see them on the uptick here. We get a lot of queries from governments and private sector alike across the continent. And I think as SEZs proliferate on the continent, we have to keep in mind what separates the successes from the failures. We know concept, we know design, we know delivery, we know timing, and we know commitment, which hooks back to policy.
Right.
Governments have to be committed, and successful countries have had SEZs as anchors of their industrial policy. So they've gone in, and again, they've worked to establish the ecosystem, whether it's the trade policy, investment policy, sound legal and regulatory frameworks. They invest in having one-stop shops and aftercare services. They engage in preferential trade agreements so they can link buyers and markets. They have the physical infrastructure. And then, of course, you come to the capital. It's another area where policy is important. There has to be the right environment for capital to be made available locally. Of course, there are international players like IFC, like the African Development Bank, and we're respectively trying to step up our local currency financing. We're trying to establish more facilities to support small and medium enterprises. We even have a stronger use these days of blended finance, concessional finance. Of course, there, one of my other key messages is green. It's a lot easier to talk a blended finance facility into supporting your project and have a better cost of capital if you're going to do something for the environment or something for women. So that's something we hope to continue to step up.
It's interesting you said a little earlier that cement used to be a dirty word, but there's a big effort to clean it up, so to speak. And we have a conversation actually here. I'm speaking to Aliko Dangote this afternoon, and they're doing a lot about making sure that their cement production is sustainable as well. So there is at least an effort across the board to do that.
And more than an effort, a lot of great successful stories showcased here on the continent. In cement and other sectors, I mean, completely different sector, but we just invested in a green hotel in South Sudan.
All right.
If that can be done, I think we can all have creative, open minds on greening different sectors and subsectors.
Exciting. Igor, we were talking a little earlier about some special economic zones in other parts of the continent that could be maybe good models for East Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was quite inspired by your vision, Minister. But a good example, and that's I think where you started off at Africa, one people. There are so many good examples we can learn from in Africa, and one of those examples is Medport Tangiers, where there are 6 activity zones, and that starts with having a vision as a country. And those 6 activity zones, there are now 1,200 companies, and those 1,200 companies generate not only trade, but they generate development of people.
Right. The human capital development.
And capital development.
Yeah.
So what you see is that we as a port operator, and we have 2 large ports there, but we are now also investing in a shared service center in Morocco because we have highly educated people. And that means that we are moving beyond offering jobs, we are offering careers. And even more important, and I see that as a huge responsibility as an international investor, we are contributing to capability development. And so an example of a special economic zone that does not only support ease of trade, but also helps really sustain development of a country and their people.
Related to that, your tagline as a company is lifting global trade. So what do you see as the future of global trade in East Africa?
Yeah, as I alluded to earlier, it's our mission to enable importers and exporters. Exporters so that they can get their goods out of the country in an efficient way, and importers because they need their goods on time. I can't speak for Boeing, but I can imagine that you're hugely dependent on timely delivery of your goods. Because otherwise you can't set up your factory, but also to do that at a competitive cost. And I think that is where we have a responsibility. We see that we have a responsibility in enabling global trade for Africa, that you can compete at the same level than you can in Asia or than you can in Latin America. So lifting global trade is in a way very, very much in the local context. That's the responsibility, because ultimately many of the goods, and I believe for Africa, for East Africa, 77% of the goods that you have in your hands, they are moved overseas via most likely one of our ports or one of our competitors' ports.
I want to hear from Henok in just a second, but we will get some microphones into the audience. So if you have questions, we can get to them in just a second. Oh yeah, they're already circulating there. So raise your hand and they will get to you. Your recommendation, Henok, about growing manufacturing here in the region, based on your experience from multiple companies and your current work at Boeing.
Yeah, I think...
And also as an ambassador.
I think it's not an easy task, getting manufacturing right, and that's why I think Africa is struggling in many ways to get it right. You need a lot of the pieces of the puzzle to come together. Of course, you need the vision of the country, the right sets of policies, incentives, the industrial parks, the special economic zones. So the infrastructure part has to be there. The logistics, and I can speak a lot about the logistics. I think one of the Achilles heel of this continent is the logistics. And logistics is a function of course, cost and time, and getting it right through a multimodal system, whether it's ports, road, or air, is something that we need to work on. That's where I think our competitive disadvantage comes from on the continent in terms of manufacturing. And a lot of the failures that we talked about in terms of the industrial zones or the economic zones that we talked about comes from there. So long as these impediments exist, along with the non-tariff barriers, as you will, on the customs side and the efficiencies of our overall operations, then of course we're going to be challenged, because no manufacturer will come and invest in this continent unless we have the policies and the implementations of those policies right. So that's one of the key, I think, drivers of manufacturing growth on this continent. In the aviation space in particular, I could talk about it because I come from there. You have a lot of impediments for the growth of aviation on this continent, from the taxation through the airport infrastructures, which need to be further developed. Developing cargo business or passenger business in this continent is absolutely, I mean, it's really a kudos to those who actually do it on this continent, because there are a lot of impediments. We talk about this single African air transport market for a long time. It's still not in place. We're getting there, but still at a very slow speed, and we need to accelerate that. And so it takes a lot of the pieces of the puzzle to come together to make it a success, and it's proving a challenge, but I think we can overcome it if we work together. And with the support of course, the international partner, one of whom is sitting next to me.
All right, fantastic. Let's get some audience questions right now. Yes, over here, we'll probably get two more together. Please introduce yourself and then go into it.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Emmanuel. I'm from Rwanda. Now there is a big gap between manufacturing and the natural resources, even including the human resource. You have seen that most of Africans, they go abroad to study and then don't come back. It is a kind of input in manufacturing we are losing. I'm saying this because I have experience. I ran from China. I'm expert working for the Chinese government into a program called High Talent People. Now we are establishing a factory for food supplement here in Rwanda. It was not easy, but it is a way where the government have to attract the talents, where they can establish like a fund. When someone have a qualification, came back, show what he can do, they can make a pilot phase with a little fund, later on provide enough fund for manufacturing. That will help Africa, not losing the manpower, at the same time have innovation and the creativity. That is what I have to add, because on my side, if I'm not really willing to contribute to the country development, I may say it is hard to turn back, because sometimes you graduate and come back, it is hard to get the job, even though you have the skills.
Right.
But if you have a facility to establish your own company, it's easy to come back, because you know that you gotta create jobs, at the same time you earn jobs instead of looking jobs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. Do we have another question? There's a microphone. There, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Narek Haritani. I'm in energy space. This is a very good panel because it touches both policy, entrepreneur, and the financier. So my question is this: for our industries to grow in Africa, is it possible to maybe consider what they've done in places like India, where maybe we lower the standards of green and all these good things that are there, but so that we can create more factories, maybe at lower standards. It might be controversial, maybe using coal and things like that, so that the cost is low, and also issues of logistics. I just want to hear what you think about this, because
I like that question.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
I can probably take one more real quick before we wrap it up. Yes, final one.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Ibrahim. I'm from Mali. We're at the Mali Investment Promotion Agency. So we were very inspired by the minister's vision and plan for Rwanda over the next 5 years. And Rwanda is somewhat of an example to many countries in Africa. So Mali is a landlocked country, just like Ethiopia, just like Rwanda. So the question is, what advice do you have for a landlocked country to reach the same level of efficiency as you in terms of manufacturing and agricultural production?
Right out. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We'll start with that final one, Minister, which is he's from Mali, which is landlocked like Rwanda. And what kind of advice would you have for countries navigating that based on your experience here?
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Being an advisor here will not be easy, because usually government choose their advisors, and what I can advise Ibrahim, because you are the one in the room, then perhaps the voice will arrive in Mali. The sustainable development requires many factors. The one of it, Mali, you have it because I know you have human capital. You have resources, you have a goodwill, and of course with that you can have financing. But as you know, across our countries in Africa, political governance sustainability sometimes is not always there in sustainable ways. So to make sure that you can have a project to be financed for the next 50 years, with the instability, for sure IFC will not finance it, because it's a big risk. So those external factors are the ones. So development is connected with governance. If governance can be there, for sure everyone will come to invest. Experience we have here in Rwanda after the genocide, it was very hard to find someone who can come and have a factory, for example, putting vaccines here, or putting a cement factory, because vaccines, cement factory is a lifetime project. But with the political will, the leadership vision we have had and we still have, people now believe in Rwanda. So let's work around the governance in Africa and see how can we help each other to have stability. That is what I can say to Ibrahim, because we have all other variables available. So because I have the microphone,
right,
may I comment on Dr. Emmanuel?
Go for it.
Dr. Emmanuel, thank you to hear that. But I know even you are putting in place this factory. But I want to say something about coming back home. Even if you don't have a job, even if you are a billionaire, even if you have many things abroad, home is always home. So come, tell others people to come, because you can have money when you are at home and you can share problems. I remember when I finished my studies, my PhD, I got an offer at University of Milan, where I was, to become an assistant lecturer. But I had a very need to come back home, even to marry my lovely wife today. So don't see money as a solution. Just see money as something you can have something you can't have, but home is always home. People can't stay abroad because there is no job. People can't stay abroad because you have warm water. You have to stay home because you have that home. That's what I want to say to Emmanuel. And I hope you can be the voice and to encourage all other Rwandans to come home, even if they don't have a job. They will have a job when they will be here. Perhaps they will not be paid $5,000, but they will gain. They will be in the family and the friends.
So Minister Ngabisinze, you came back, you didn't take the job at the University of Milan because you loved your country or because you loved your wife?
That is what I did.
You guys were thinking it. Come on, I'm just asking what you had in mind.
That is the true story of things, because it was possible to find a job. That's true. I understand it is a personal choice, but at the end, it's not only personal. It's a commitment you have for a country where you have been. It's not a political deal. This is something from sentiment, emotions. You have to understand in your mind. Because I'm sure when you pass 10 years in another country, you call, you write night and day to your brothers and sisters and friends you left in the country. So this sentiment in the heart must push you to come back and share the good and the bad in your country. That's what I want to emphasize. It's knowledge and everything you can have if you don't serve your continent, your country, your family, people you love, people you miss. To me, at the end, is being selfish, and being selfish is not something you can encourage. You have to encourage sharing what you have. Is perhaps philosophical, but is how I see it, Emmanuel, my brother Emmanuel. And I hope people in China, you tell them to come back, and perhaps we give work to add factory, but never say I can't come back home because. No, and no. So thank you so much. I want to close here.
All right.
Thank you.
Sadbir and then the others, because the gentleman asked about lowering our green targets just because we need so much. We need jobs, we need industries, we need manufacturing. Right now, we can't have the same Western standards for sustainability and all that. Sadbir first and then Igor, yeah.
So I share quickly the same sentiments as Honorable Minister. I am educated abroad. I came back to a very, very small business. And then we all scaled it up with the guidance of my father and passion of our team. So please do come home and bring technology, bring education, and let's empower our where we've come from. So basically, regarding lowering the standards, my friend there mentioned about lowering the standards so that we could fit in. But why should we fit in? Why can't we have the standards even higher, but sit with our governments and tell them that what policy do we want and show them the commitment we as private sector have so that we could sit down and create that policy. Because remember, governments are not designed to do business. Governments are there to provide us infrastructure and to provide us good governance. And as East Africa, we are blessed, extremely blessed. All our governments, they are very stable, extremely visionary, and that's why we are here in East Africa carrying Africa CEO Forum. And Rwanda itself is a great example. So as private sector and government sector and public sector, if we sit down, make those policies in place, only thing we must request our governments, which is my message to all our governments, is that please do have some policies to protect the local investment, right? But then our private sector should also build the capacity. We must build the capacity. We must look into consideration of quality is the most important thing, and speedy delivery. Because some projects are time barred, and the quality, we must move the bar up so that we can satisfy our region, plus our products should proudly be accepted outside Africa. So that's my take on that one.
All right, we'll go in reverse order. Igor.
Thank you, and I will keep it short. But lowering standards is not a good idea. As most, we have committed to be net zero by 2014, and we are that serious by that. But it doesn't mean that we don't take our responsibility in a just transition. You need to put everything into context. but let me give you an example of why it is a good idea to, and I very much like what you say, right? You want to be proud, you want to send the best products. We have just signed in Nigeria, in our port in Onne, a 15-year-long power purchase agreement, solar power. And there, we provide 30% of all the energy we need in the port at a lower price. So what you will see with green is over the next years, the cost will decrease massively. If you look at electrical equipment, it will decrease massively. Maybe you do steel redesign, but something to think about. In Ivory Coast, we have invested in electrical terminal trucks.
Right.
So there's just an operational cost element that will come very quickly. So lower the standards now will bite you going forward.
Okay. And Mary, this is a sentiment you hear a lot, especially here in Africa, which is, why should we have the same green targets? We contribute so little to global greenhouse gas emissions, even though we're leaving the effects of the climate crisis. Yet we need jobs. So make those coal plants do everything just to make sure that people are gainfully employed.
Well, I don't think I have to tell you that climate change knows no boundaries, and 30 to 40% of emissions on this continent come from manufacturing. And if we continue as business as usual, we could double that. And I personally don't think that the manufacturing growth has to equate to adverse climate change effects. And in fact, we can use manufacturing by greening it to improve the situation. Specialists tell me we have the technology to address a lot of these things. It's not costly like people think, or as costly as people think. So
right.
I do think there are solutions out there. Moreover, I don't think maintaining strong standards, environmental standards, should be thought of as a cost, like a lot of businesses think of it. It's an investment. It's an investment to help a company produce quality products and access markets beyond region. You see the news and the EU regulations. This is how local African and regional African value chains will tap into global
markets.
And IFC can't invest in coal, so don't ask me for my card if that's the way you're going.
So anybody who's looking for a coal plant, they should not come to you for money. Henok, finally.
I think my brother from the back asked the elephant in the room question.
Yes, we were all thinking it.
It's a very good question. I think personally Africa needs to do two things. We need to make sure that we industrialize, we build as many factories as we can and satisfy our consumption needs and export. That we have to do. If this continent is to transform, that's a must.
Hang on. We need to industrialize at any cost?
No, I didn't say that. Listen.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
But we need to industrialize. So this idea that Africa can somehow develop without industrialization, don't buy into it. That's the first point. Second point, the planet is in peril. That's a fact. And those of us who are suffering the most from it are us Africans. If you look at the refugee crisis in Africa,
right.
The displacement crisis in Africa, the desertification, the famines, the effects of extreme weather in Africa are greater because our capability to handle it is weaker, naturally, as a developing country. So we have these two imperatives that we somehow have to, manage. How do we do it? It requires partnership from our global partners. And the one next to me is a very important partner. Greening manufacturing is a very important aspect to it. We in Africa have to develop the green energies with the support of our international partners. That's very important. And we have to make sure that that energy is availed to African private sector at the least possible cost so that it doesn't become prohibitive. If we adopt that approach, then we can develop and still, be consistent with our environmental obligation. So it takes two to tango, and hopefully the climate fund, which is yet to come, will come to Africa. We've been waiting for it since 2009. That's a very long time, 2009.
Right.
So
15 years.
My urge is for the climate fund to come, for us to develop using green technology. That's the two imperatives that we have to actually manage. Thank you.
And this region has just been seeing the effect of the climate crisis very recently. We've been covering flooding in Tanzania, in Kenya, and that following a record drought, after five failed rainy seasons in Kenya, for instance, the worst drought in 40 years. So you see those effects. And President Ruto, who's coming up right after, speaks a lot about the need for us to be.
Yeah, but in order for us to be able to mitigate the effects of this climate change we're seeing, and for our populations to be able to live through it, we have to develop. We have to be industrialized.
Okay.
That's a fact.
I feel like this is the beginning of a completely new panel. So I'm going to have to leave it there. Please give my panel a big round of applause. Thank you so much. You've been absolutely incredible. Thank you for listening. And we're going to jump off stage right now. I'd introduce myself at the beginning. My name is Larry Mado. I work at CNN.